executive session, and we will start our board meeting. And before we approve the agenda, as I've said, I've asked Carson to come and read a poem that he wrote.
Kim, I'm
Do I
sorry,
need to,
Carson, we're
sorry,
gonna make you
Carson.
wait a little bit
Do I need
longer.
to approve the agenda?
We need to approve the agenda first.
Dang it, I was trying to get out
Then
of
we'll get you going. Sorry.
Okay, so,
I think I can do it.
do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Can you do it?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment to add an additional executive session at the end of the meeting.
And then I would like to amend also policy 676 in the agenda, which is stated twice, and take it out of the consent agenda.
Like that.
So, do I have a second?
Second.
And in favor, Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael? JD?
Aye.
Hillary?
Aye, but I don't see it on this. Oh,
Yeah. So we're gonna take it out of consent?
okay.
Is that okay?
Oh, I see.
All right, so with that approved, now Carson. I think we're ready. I just wanted everyone to know that I met him, or saw him at the 100-year celebration, and he is the winner of our poetry contest for this district for a 100-year celebration. He wrote this poem. I thought it was outstanding, and so I just wanted to share it with us and with those of us that are here tonight. So, Carson, it's yours now.
Ode to Kuna, home of the caveman, from the small show of the potato to the encore of the gem drop, from the few houses to the beautiful neighborhoods, the beautiful trail of the green belt, flourishing us with joy, and the true nest for birds of prey. A surrounded part of gas stations and stores, and maybe even a whole lot more. The fields of crops growing for food, nothing better than improving your mood. The parks and the water towers, such a beautiful sight, and Kuna showing off our true might. It's Kuna's 100th year, so why don't we be happy and show great cheer? Don't think it's over, there's still a lot more. For Kuna is amazing with its wonderful ore. The animals all around, some just waiting to pounce. Leaving Kuna is a sad kind of thing, so you should stay and sing. It's Kuna's first century, so let's use up all our time and energy on this beautiful identity.
Good job. So once again, we're 100 years of graduates, and so I thought that was awesome. Thank you, Carson. Thank you to Carson's mom and little brother, I think, that came to hear that. Thank you. All right. I guess we're on to reports and superintendent report.
So Principal Ritter, you're up for our school spotlight.
Steal that presenter from me. Thank you. I'm Kara Ritter. I'm the principal over at Silver Trail. And this is Ashley Stewart. She's a 5th grade teacher and our GT coordinator. And over there cheering us on is our assistant principal, Kaylee Pond. So we decided to go off of the theme of Together We Can and really discuss with you guys together what Silver Trail is and all the people that put the puzzle pieces together at Silver Trail. So that's what we're going to do today. We thought we'd start off with a little bit of data first. And there's a lot of pieces that go into the puzzle of data. And this is what we're presenting from the beginning of the year, September, to April. So we still have another month to put all the last little things together. But as you can see, the green basically shows where our students came in and were meeting proficiency at grade level. And then the red are students that are falling about 2 grade levels behind. And as you can see, just as of last week, our red is very, very small. And we have a lot more green, and so we're really excited about that growth, and we can't wait to see where we end up at the end of the school year. And this is our reading our iStation data.
That investment in all day kindergarten obviously shows up there. We're
Yes,
looking at
yes.
29. Yeah, that's
The
awesome.
kindergarten always has definitely the most growth because we're getting those students when there's only room for growth there. So that's really exciting. And then this is our math, and this is based on the iReady, and this is based off of end of year data. So it's that, or excuse me, end of year scores. So when they're taking it here, they're actually being rated on where they should fall at end of year growth. So essentially, only 21% of our students came in already being proficient in grade level standards, which is actually pretty large, but we do have a pretty large gifted and talented program at Silver Trail. And so this is in January, so this benchmark is only taken 3 times a year. And so currently, January is when our last one was. 52% of our students, halfway through the school year, a little more than half of our students were meeting the benchmark. And we'll take this again in May. Our school goal is to hit about 78, 79%. That's kind of what we're shooting for this year, is our overall goal for our students, tier 1. So we're really excited about our data, and we can't wait to see where we kind of end up in May. And so that's just one piece of the puzzle, and I'm gonna let Ms. Stewart here kind of discuss the next part.
So as a teacher, I love data. It drives our instruction. It's extremely important, but it only showcases a snippet in time. It only showcases what that student was able to do in that moment. It doesn't show all of the hard work, dedication, and support that it takes to get that student to be successful and to feel successful. So at Silver Trail, we have 23 classroom teachers that are dedicated and committed to best practices in instruction and through the use of AVID strategies. So this year, our AVID team was able to come together to create vertically aligned sentence stems to help students feel successful in wanting to participate in their classroom in those discussions. So starting as simple as I agree, disagree with in kindergarten, all the way up to 5th grade with I've heard and I'd like to extend that further by adding, so really taking ownership, listening to what their peers have to say, and then extending their thinking. So we are also very fortunate and extremely grateful to have our early release PLCs for Wednesday. We use that time to get together with our professional learning communities, just to be able to go over that data and to discuss it, and then come up with those common formative assessments to continue to drive and reach that student success. Not only are we supported by our amazing classroom teachers, but we also really depend on and lean on our specialists and our instructional coach to not only provide support for us, but for students as well.
And there's your amazing staff, we're really cute. We love them.
We are very fortunate. We have music, PE, keyboarding, and library that our students are able to rotate through those specialists. But not only do they work on those content areas, but they are also willing to jump in and pull small groups to help some struggling learners as well.
Yeah, so some of these pictures are them in their content areas, but also them pulling some math and reading groups as well when needed. And this is a very special part of my heart and something I absolutely love and adore about Silver Trail, and that is our special education department. So every school in the district has resource, and we also have speech and language, and we absolutely adore those ladies that support our school there. But we actually house one of 2 elementary extended resource room programs, and there's a couple of special things that I would like to share with you guys with that program. We have 18 students in our ERR, and that is for students with mild to severe cognitive disabilities. And what's really cool is the 2 teachers that run that program actually have 100% progress toward IEP goals as of this moment, which is really exciting. And so they were really happy to be able to show that and have us share with you today. And I do have a parent that I would like to have you hear from.
Hi everybody, my name's Becca and I am a Silver Trail mom. I brought this picture of Eli to show you because he didn't want to be in the video, so he's been at Silver Trail since he was in kindergarten and he is in 5th grade now. And Eli has been part of the extended resource room his entire time in elementary school because Eli's a rare student, he's a rare child. He has a rare disease, and in his time at Silver Trail, they have journeyed a lot with us. So we've seen Eli lose his vision, lose his ability to walk, and really just fight this disease that he has. And I have been overwhelmed at the support and the love and the care of our Silver Trail team. In the rare disease world, I do hear a lot of stories about schools that withhold resources or just don't tell parents about resources until the parents figure it out and know enough to ask. And I have just never felt that way about our team at Silver Trail. I've always felt like they have been in our corner. They care deeply about Eli. We structured his day around what he needs, and I know that is no small feat when you serve hundreds of children. So I am honored to have been part of, and I say to have been part because we're about to move on to middle school, but we have been so honored to be part of the Silver Trail family and all that Principal Ritter and the team are doing there. They are absolutely incredible.
Eli is as much a part of our community as any other child, and we're really sad to lose him off to KMS, but I know that Miss Manuel over there is going to treat him well. And then this is another one of our students in our ERR program, and the parent was not able to be here tonight, but she wanted me to share with you that we are so grateful for the Silver Trail family. As parents of a special needs child, we were concerned that Rowan may not be able to connect with her peers. At Silver Trail, though, that could not be further from reality. Thanks to an incredible team of teachers, staff, and leadership, Silver Trail embodies a spirit of connectedness and family. I have always felt like Rowan is able to thrive, to learn, and make friends because of the culture embodied at Silver Trail. We could not be happier with the experience Rowan has had, and we're especially grateful for the ERR team. Their work is a vital part of Rowan's future. To say thank you is simply not enough. And here is our sweet Rowan, who's also a 5th grader.
Rowan, what do you like about Silver Trail?
I love the teachers. I like to play outside. I love my friends. I like to try hard things.
And if you talk to Rowan, she will definitely tell you she likes to try hard things. She's one amazing little girl, and she's actually in Mrs. Stewart's class. So this is a very special piece of our Silver Trail puzzle. These ERR students are a big part of our culture. They're only 18 out of almost 600 students, but they are just a very special part of us, and I really am proud to show off that program.
Not only do we work really hard to make sure that students feel supported and successful within the classroom, we also have our social worker, Mrs. Moon, who makes students feel supported and successful at home as well. She makes sure that students are provided with weekend backpacks so that they have those essential needs are being met so that they can come to school ready and prepared. She also makes sure that they have new clothes, shoes, and coats. She helps run our Thanksgiving baskets and our holiday baskets for students as well.
And then the school supplies.
And making sure that students are ready prepared within the classroom with their school supplies too.
As we know, the students' basic needs are not met. They're not going to be able to come to school and learn, and so we're super thankful to have Miss Moon at Silver Trail. Is that me or you? Me?
Yes.
Okay. We also have Darcy Adams. She does serve multiple schools, and she provides EL services for our English language learners. At Silver Trail, we have 15 English language learners currently, and she services those that need that one-on-one or specialized small support. And she is absolutely amazing, and she does service other schools as well, but we're thankful for that extra support for our English language learners.
This one speaks to my heart. As the GT facilitator as one of them for Silver Trail, we are able to provide our students with a gifted and talented outlet. We currently have 25 students that are identified within our building, and every Wednesday we're able to give them a 40-minute project-based learning environment thanks to the help of our interventionist. These students are able to work through real-world problems that also tie to their academic IP or their IPLAN goals. So we were able to have a local food truck come in so that students could walk through, ask her business plan, what it took to get started, and then we were able to tie all of that thinking into their math and pulling out percentages and where they would need to go. So that was a really awesome experience for them.
And students in GT are typically identified in 3rd grade, so we have 25 students identified between 3rd through 5th grade, and we do have a few students currently being tested as well. We have intervention, and we have one interventionist, and you guys have heard a lot about win time. That's been a big highlight of what a lot of the schools are doing. So we also provide that 40-minute win time within our building. Every 6 weeks, we come together within each grade level with our instructional coach, myself, our assistant principal, and we work and we really dig into that data to restructure those groups to ensure that every child, every 6 weeks, as they learn and grow, are getting what they need. So we're really proud of that program. This is Mrs. Kohara, our current interventionist, and like Ashley said, she also does help support our GT program as well. And this has been a labor of love at Silver Trail, and we have really been working with students. So we've talked a lot about academics and all kinds of areas, so this is more our behavioral piece. And if you come to Silver Trail, you're gonna see signs everywhere, and you're gonna hear this language being used. I think as parents, when you look at these 5 words, these are 5 words that we would want all of us, adults and students, to be able to do and be able to show. And so if you come to Silver Trail, you'll definitely see these 5 things and hear that. Students earn trail tickets for showing trail, and that's really a big part of who we are. And we got all 600 students outside to practice a reverse evacuation, but while we were practicing a reverse evacuation, we decided to do a fun little video. Thank you so much for letting us showcase Silver Trail. Are there any questions that you guys have for us?
What do you do in wind time?
What do we do in wind time? It is a mixed bag, but really when we come together to plan those groups, every grade level looks at their data and kind of determines what the needs are. So we have kids kind of going every which way, traveling from their classrooms. The expectations of teachers is they are pulling small groups. So teachers are maybe pulling groups of students that, the GT students who are needing that extension. We have small groups of students being pulled for if they're needing more of that intervention. We utilize all the district, intervention programs that are available, the different curriculums that are available to us. It is reading based during that 40 minutes, and it's really concentrated on exactly what every student needs. And then during that time, we're able to have a higher concentration of people kind of supporting that. So it's not just the classroom teachers. We have our interventionists supporting that. In some grade levels, our special area teachers are supporting that. And it's really a mixed bag, but it's looking at data and determining what their reading needs are, where they're at, and ensuring that they're getting that support. So that is in addition to their reading core block. So every child gets the reading core block, and then during this block, it's really focused and honed in on what every child specifically needs and where they're at in reading.
So like reading and reading comprehension and
Yeah,
stuff like
reading,
that.
vocabulary, vocabulary, spelling, phonics, phonemic awareness.
Okay,
Yeah.
so strictly reading, like not math or anything like
Yeah,
that?
this is our reading block, yeah. Yes?
Do you know if there's other elementary schools with a gifted and talented program as well, or is it
Yeah,
just?
so as a district, we do have a GT program, and so we run that program just like everybody else. At Silver Trail, I choose to utilize my interventionist in an additional way and having her support gifted, and I'm sure other schools probably do that as well. The reason we call it BEAST is because that's a curriculum that we use. And it's been around actually prior to when I was even at Silver Trail. It was when Mr. L was at Silver Trail. This is something that he actually brought. And so it's really an extra extension for those students. And it's like Ashley said, project-based learning for those students as well. So all of our students, every child in the district who is identified as gifted goes through an I-plan process and an identification process. And then the teachers work and are trained on different compacted curriculum and how to extend that for those students. This is just something specific, the BEAST Academy, that we do have at Silver Trail.
There's actually a task force that we formed this year as
Yes.
a part of our strategic plan with some parents. Chairman Nixon serves on the board, representative. So really targeting elementary right now, like to get some more consistency across all of our elementary schools.
That's great.
It's a good program.
And we are both on that, and then also a parent of ours over there is also on that as well.
Are there any other questions? Then I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I do have a little bit of a comment.
Yes.
I was so happy to see your math at risk go from 14% to 7%.
I know, isn't that beautiful?
So I celebrate that with you guys. That is awesome.
Yes, thank you so much, I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. I am so excited about this next thing on our agenda. We have Councilman David Murray from Middleton, who is here to speak to us about some things that they're doing there. And
I think we actually have the ordinance itself that's going to be proposed, so we got you jammed in there, Councilman, sorry.
there you go.
I don't really know what to do with myself, because usually there's a podium and he sits. So if I start waving my hands around like I'm from New Jersey, you'll just have to forgive me.
We'll be good, we'll be
Are you
good.
guys able to Google some things and pull them up here? I didn't bring a slideshow, is that?
Yeah, we have the actual ordinance link
Well, can you
there.
first pull up the Idaho Constitution, Article 9? That would
Can't
be
do that, I'm
fantastic.
sorry, this is all I have is available just for this.
Oh.
What, no Chrome? That's all right. So, I'll use my phone, how about that? I'm sure you guys are all aware, but I always like to start at the beginning. Article 9 of the Idaho State Constitution says, the legislature to establish a system of free schools, the stability of a republican form of government depending mainly upon the intelligence of the people, it shall be the duty of the legislature of Idaho to establish and maintain a general, uniform, and thorough system of public, free, common schools.
Yeah.
Now what that means is that education is a right in this state. A right which the Supreme Court of this state has determined the legislature consistently has failed to adequately fund, going back to ISEEO cases 1 through 5, starting in the 80s, going through the early 2000s. The primary justification for that is in that thorough, in that article. Thorough, the Supreme Court decided, was comprised of 2 elements, safe and conducive to learning. The legislature fixed the safe, so there are now mechanisms where if your school is unsafe, you can secure funding and you can fix that. Conducive to learning was never addressed. We still rely on the supermajority bond, which is not a constitutional method of funding for schools in this state. Legislature for over 20 years has just thumbed their nose at that. They don't care. So the primary goal of this ordinance is to protect my schools. But if other communities join, then hopefully, eventually, the entire state. Secondary goal is to make a splash and gain the attention of the legislature to do their job, you know, the one that they're elected to do. So what this would do is it would require, as part of the development application packet, a letter from the school district certifying capacity in all schools in which they propose to build. So the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. And if there is not capacity, there will be no letter. The packet is incomplete, and it never even goes before council. So the goal here is to make schools infrastructure, the same as anything else. If you don't have capacity in your sewer system, if there's no electrical, whatever the case is, schools are infrastructure. If we don't have room, we don't have room. So you guys have a packed agenda tonight. I'm trying to keep it concise. Questions on anything?
Can you tell us when you are planning to go before your council to present this, or have you already done that?
8 days.
Okay.
8 days we'll vote on it. And there is, to my knowledge, there is not another like this in the state of Idaho. Not for cities, not for counties. So we're stepping out alone, but I'm really hoping that other communities will put pressure on their cities and counties and try to join us, so that we're not standing out there all alone looking like a easy target.
We've put pressure on ours. Have you heard what we've been doing?
I have.
Okay.
I have, yeah. And I've spoken with Council President for Kuna, and I'm optimistic. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So say, you know, the packet's incomplete because there's not room in the schools. So is that basically kind of like a moratorium on building a little bit, like you can't, because there's no way to fund schools unless more businesses or, you know, like in the mechanism that we've been provided by the legislature. No new property taxes means, I guess, either still a bond to pay for new schools, or I guess what's the moving forward point of that? Like what's the plan to move forward?
Well, it's not my job to fund the school. If developers would like to see the law change and have a school be built so that there is then capacity, then they can use their influence and capital to get state laws changed. They have that ability.
Okay, so I see, like you would like to use this as a mechanism to facilitate change in the legislature for school funding?
Secondary purpose, primary purpose, so we have 3 elementary schools. Purple Sage is still under capacity, but it is at 90% and is home to all of our special education programs in our district, in our district. So that's kept artificially low on purpose. Heights is at 120, Mill Creek is at 120, Heights is at 144 now, I just found that out, 144%.
Okay.
So my primary purpose is, as much as possible, stop further harm. Secondary or third goal is, yes, to get the legislature to pay attention, to get other communities to join us, so that eventually, one day, this won't be controversial. This will just be the way it is. It should be that way already. I mean, it's common sense, right? But it's amazingly controversial.
How much pushback are you getting from the other city councilmen with this?
Only one that I really don't think I can carry at this point.
So I just need a little further. What you're saying is if the school's at 110%, then no subdivision, it stops. Is that what you're saying?
Or if, let's say we're at 108, but you're proposing 600 homes, and it will push it
Over
past
110?
110, that's still,
Because of the infrastructure, you can say, wait, we can't do that because of our school.
right.
So I guess I have a couple questions. Have you talked with your school board in Middleton about this, and how have they received it?
They discussed it at their March meeting. This was drafted with the superintendent of our school district as well as Valley View. So they participated actively in this process. And despite the fact that I come from 2 generations of public school teachers on both sides of my family tree, I actually it didn't occur to me, and I had to be educated on the infrastructure of the schools.
Okay.
Because this does include the common areas of every school, so that you can't just add portables endlessly and raise the capacity. The capacity of the school is based upon classroom and common areas.
Okay, my second question is developers. Have they weighed in on this? Do they understand what's happening? And what are their feelings? Sorry, people, but I wanna know.
Well, I was recently made aware that I'm either the Antichrist or Satan himself.
Oh, surprise. Well, we haven't been called quite that yet here, but we've had some issues. So I just wondered.
So do
You have it?
oh, sorry.
So no, that was my second question, I guess, type of thing. So go ahead.
So do you expect to be sued?
Boy, I hope not, but
I mean,
we are
I
prepared for that
noted, but,
eventuality.
yeah.
We had our city attorneys write it, we had 2 outside attorneys look at it, and we had a 3rd expert look at it. All of them, given that it's novel, they can't say, 100% guarantee, but pretty glowing reviews based upon it being novel and its grounding in state code and both federal and state constitutions, not falling under the regulatory takings analysis. So I'm pretty confident that if we are, we will emerge victorious, so to speak.
Well, I like this approach. Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand to what we need to. It forces developers maybe to help us pass some bonds. It forces maybe the legislature to help us so that we can get above that, because we are overcrowded and it is in service to our children, and that's what bothers me the most. So are there any other comments?
So your city attorney approved this and was okay with all this?
Well, he wrote it, I hope he's okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in other words, what you're doing is you're presenting that to us to get some feedback from us. Is that what you're looking for? Because I would like to see us take this even to the city council.
He's wanting us to get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys can't vote on this, obviously.
No,
But
there's
if you
no
like what you
action
see,
item. Yeah.
then you can turn around to your city council and hopefully exert a little bit of influence.
Yeah, we need
Well,
to,
we have a couple that
Probably.
support it, so I
we
think
need to
it's a good
send
idea.
it to the city council.
I think it'd be nice to send it with a letter and maybe have Robbie and Danielle take a look at it, because I think it's an awesome place to go. I mean, I think we've done some mitigation, but I think the problem that I've seen with the mitigation is you have one subdivision going because they've given the school district something, one not going because they didn't. This seems a little fairer to me. You're at 110%, it's over with, and I appreciate that, so I'd like to see us maybe move forward. Anybody else?
I just have one more question. I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another, because I feel like I don't have quite enough information, but I do wonder, so what happens when you deny subdivisions and you're at 110%, so you'll never get past 110%, when do you then build another school? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess to me, and he probably could answer this better, I think then you're forcing some people to say, hey, we need to help or take a look at doing something different here.
We need to
Well,
pass-
it
we need to
wouldn't,
pass the bond.
We need to pass the
10%
bond.
like, wouldn't really be enough for a new school of people, like, you know what, I mean, I just don't know, like, maybe because we're so used to one system, like, I just wonder, when then do you
Well,
move forward?
can I jump in?
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, if it were my job, and we just had one school that was slightly over capacity, I wouldn't try to justify building an entirely new school based, I might redraw boundaries and distribute that one to some others. But for us, for example, we have one at 120, one at 144. So just the overcapacity children in those two schools can more than halfway fill,
Build something.
well
Sure.
over halfway fill, a brand new school all by themselves.
But you've only got 3, so really you'd be only like at, if all of them were at 110%,
Mhm.
you'd only be at 30% of another school.
Well, you're right. Yeah, I don't want to play the what-if game too much, because I learned a long time ago you can what-if the situation to death. But as part of the solution for funding schools, connected to this but not directly related, I fully intend to go pick a fight with the legislature next year, and I'm looking to build a coalition of people to help me with that. So if any of you are willing and able, I would love to have you on the team.
And the other thing is, this has to do with new subdivisions. You know, your school might get more capacity just from people moving into the other houses, and you might have more. I guess, Superintendent Johnson, what capacity are we at our,
It depends on the
Elementaries.
school.
okay, I'm just curious.
Nothing is at, in our elementaries currently are over capacity, but they're very close. So the 110 in this ordinance, yeah, I guess Reed is, you're right, they're over capacity. I don't know if they're at 110 yet, but it's like 107. Our high school is definitely over this.
And
so-
isn't it also like, capacity is still kind of like a lot of students per classroom, like ideally
Absolutely.
we'd rather have less than what
Yeah.
capacity is anyway, just
Yeah.
because, 35 students is accepted, but it should be really more like 27 or something,
Yeah.
just throwing out numbers. So like in an ideal world, maybe you'd be at 80% across the board. Is that kind of true? Like, or like less than at 100%, just so that you have
Yes.
lower class sizes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And not have to have maybe 4 lunches and,
Well, right,
which
like,
is really
it's
breakfast.
just-
and-
So
yeah.
capacity is really, almost feels brimming and over capacity. It feels
Absolutely.
over capacity anyway. But so where does the capacity number come from? I mean, I'm clearly new to this, so I'm just wondering.
We can certainly give you an update by
Yeah.
school and explain that, but we have it, what's called an educational capacity, so we take the number of classrooms that we have. We also consider like resource and special education, those kind of specialized programs, and consider them into the formula. So it's a matter of the number of class size, we figure out like class size in kinder versus 5th grade. Brian has done a ton of work in this,
So
and
those
so we
like
have it by
ideal
school.
capacity numbers are developed in the Kuna School District, not by like the state or like
Right,
outside
right,
recommendations?
because every school is different with what they have. So like, for example, Indian Creek they have their gym, which is also their cafeteria, and so there's some interesting situations that have to happen where we can't use some of that space because of that combined.
Sure,
So that's factored in, where at a Silver Trail, they don't necessarily have that
got it.
challenge. So it is definitely individualized by the school. Go ahead, jump in.
I can't say the company's name.
Yes, we also had a group verify our data. Yeah, not a CUNA school district group, but,
Right.
which is on our website, so. I appreciate you also, can I just give you a thank you for being here, but I also appreciate that you consider portables as a non-solution, because there's a lot of safety issues there. But the infrastructure becomes a nightmare, not more bathrooms, not more lunch spaces, not more library space, all of those things that, gym, all those things that our kids, as Principal Ritter just explained, all those other specialized programs. When we add portables, we don't add to that infrastructure, and then it gets really interesting, and not in a good way for kids. So I appreciate that you mentioned that.
Well, I also want to point out when you all were discussing capacity and building of homes, keep in mind that the numbers you have now, if you stopped approving more development applications right now today,
There's still gonna be a ton of homes.
there is a
Mhm.
backlog I don't know what Kuna's is.
Yeah.
Ours, we have, right now, we have enough homes approved to build at the average rate we have for the last 4 years, for another 8 to 12 years. So even if you guys stop right now, in another 5 years, you might find yourself at 144 like us. So the sooner you act, the better the shape your schools are gonna be in. Because if we can't pass a bond like we're gonna try to next year, and we failed to 2 years ago, we're gonna be really hurting really soon.
That's really a good point, so.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
So does the ordinance say like that all schools have to be at 110% capacity, or just one of them, or the one that's in that district? I mean,
So you would take into account elementary, middle, and high. So if you're gonna build, if the elementary school is over that 110, you can't build. Because you don't know when they build that neighborhood and people move in, you have studies that the school district will do that tells you the average number of students per home, what percentage should go to the elementary, to the middle. But that's not concrete, so you can't know amongst home buyers how many are gonna fall each. So if one of our schools, elementary, middle, or high, is over that, then you're not building there. Especially
in the current
because
zone of that subdivision.
wherever you're
school.
building, whatever schools
Right.
have it within their boundary. And for us, because it's our elementary schools that are currently in that situation, elementary schools always get the most students because they have the most grades, they have K through 5. So, yeah, you can't build because our middle and high school might have capacity, but our elementary schools have nowhere near.
You may already know this, but just trying to get some more information out there. One thing that we want to push too is legislation to stop the supermajority for a bond. Where there's only 2 states in all of the country that require that. And the other state makes sense because they fund things a little bit different. But we don't make any sense. We have to have a supermajority vote to pass a bond, and that's ridiculous. It should be just a majority vote like everything else.
That's why I'm going to pick a fight with them next year.
And this is obviously starting that fight, saying, hey, you know what, we're not gonna do any more subdivisions because we're over. And guess what, let's figure something out here, cause it's a broken system right now.
Well, and I would like to remind everybody that although the boogeyman for everyone is the developer, they're not the ones at fault. They're simply following the law as it's written right now. The legislature is the one who for 2 decades has ignored the findings of the highest court in this state. So I will extend my hand and partner and work with any of the developers, any of their builders associations to help us.
The
So-
developers,
And I've told them that.
they got a ton of pull at the legislative level. They spend a lot of time and money there.
And that's been our problem.
Yeah.
That is because it stops there.
So they
As
are
a
the
school.
boogeyman.
Well, keep in mind, this is an election year for many of those fine people. And so if you'd like to get commitments out of them, now's a good time to get them on record with them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, pretty much what you're saying is this is kind of the way to get their attention and try to go to the legislature and make changes by using this as a tool to help the process along.
I hope so. It might also be a good way to find myself bleeding in a black back alley. I guess we'll find out.
So, how are you guys feeling? Are there more
Can you
questions?
leave your number with somebody?
I sure
We've
will.
got it. We've got it.
So what I'm hearing is that we would like to allow Danielle and Robbie to take this ordinance, that we'd like to write a letter. What are your thoughts? I'm fine with that.
Can we take action on this? It
No.
doesn't-
No.
It's not an
Okay,
action
yeah,
item.
Just a report, I did later on in our
Thank
meeting
you.
schedule.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, I just want to say thank you, Councilman Murray, for taking the time. I think this is awesome, and I'd like to help you, support you.
It's a good excuse to ride across the valley on that.
It is.
I know there's one thing,
Yes,
is that okay?
yes.
So, Councilman Murray, thank you for coming. What he didn't say is that the BCA is actually doing a letter writing campaign against him. So if you like what you heard today, and if you think others that you know support the direction that he's going, please write, I think probably, Councilman Murray, to the mayor of Middleton, might be an interesting message.
Mayor
Just
or
to show that
council president?
support, council president, mayor, please do weigh in. And if you find yourself in Middleton, having people in the audience, I can speak from my experience with Kuna's planning and zoning. if you have 10 people in the audience, that's a full house. So if we have 5 people showing up that say, we like what's happening here, and we're proud of the direction it's moving, and we're behind it, that's a big message. So those are 2 ways that we can show support right away, in addition to speaking to our council.
Yeah, maybe we should write a letter of support to the Meridian, or not Meridian, Middleton, yeah, city council, and let them know, or mayor in that case. I think that'd be an awesome idea too.
And I have, in unfinished business, there's an item, it's not an action item, but it's an input for us to come back with action at our next meeting. There's some items there that we could discuss, this
Is
being
that
one of the
review?
follow-ups in there.
The review?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fine. All right, and thank you, appreciate you coming all this way.
Thank you.
And, yeah, so I think we want to continue with that. All right, we're ready for CFO Feather and an update on our estimated 24 and 25 year budget.
Chair Nixon, trustees. So it's going to be a long presentation, so I'm going to try to keep it within 30 minutes. I'm going to ask maybe either Troy or Allison to tie me and maybe raise your hand 30 minutes from now. And it's the season, and usually it's not going to be like that from now on. The original presentation is usually the heavy one, so we go through all the changes and updates. And then my next presentation in May, it's going to be the same with additional details, but we're not going to spend as much time. So today, pretty much, the purpose of this presentation, there's not going to be action required. It's just I'm going to share what I know as of today and what we're going to do, how we're going to move forward with the information we know as of today. Is it okay? Should we wait for JD Grant?
He's left for the.
Oh, okay, sorry. So let's talk about timeline, kind of an overview. So right now, we're in April, so we're gonna talk about estimations. I'll share some legislative updates. We'll talk about fund balance again. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. And we do not have to have a formal board meeting for you to ask questions. For example, you can call me, you can email me, we can schedule a meeting outside of the board meeting for any questions or details that you would like to look at. Then in May, on May 14th, we will have another meeting. It's gonna be the same presentation, but with better estimations, with more details. We're gonna dive into several, pretty much looking at a bigger picture. And we need to prepare for 2 budgets. You know, we need to have plan A and plan B. Need to prepare for good news and bad news. So it's a good practice, just because the timeline is very short. So May 21st, there is a supplemental levy election, and May 31st, 10 days from this date, Idaho code already requires us to publish our budget in the newspaper. So there is a short timeline. So we need to be ready for, we need to prepare 2 budgets. And just because we publish the budget in the newspaper, it doesn't mean that's the way it has to be. It just, it's a transparency requirement. The official budget hearing is gonna happen in June, on June 11th. So, and the goal is, so hopefully by June 11th, neither you or I have any surprises. So we're just going and we discuss all the changes and everything in the meantime. And of course, between today and June, this is what we're doing during April, May, and June. We constantly meet. There is an ongoing collaboration between departments and negotiations, so we can all agree on our budget. Do you have any questions on the timeline?
So we're waiting for the legislature from June, correct?
So we have pretty good numbers right now. So what we don't have right now is the expenses, right? Right now I'm meeting with all the budget, with all the departments, and they're like, I need this, I need that, I need that. And I keep telling them, hold on, let's wait, we need to figure out what we're getting in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
But we
have
haven't
pretty good,
officially finished, so.
but we have pretty good estimations.
Yeah.
They're actually,
And
So-
part of it depends on the levy if it goes too.
Yes.
So that will be
Mhm.
the good or bad.
But the legislators, they finished earlier this year, like
Well, they're in a
earlier-ish,
recess,
right?
yeah.
So that's a good,
We have a general idea of the school.
Do they
funding.
sign that?
No.
Okay.
so, and with any budget process, it's always good, before you move forward, right? You need to look at where am I right now? How are we doing today? Because are we close, like, let's look at the current school year and let's review our budget. Are we over our budget? Are we under our budget? Were there any surprises? Did I make any mistakes? Did the state throw a surprise? Like, is there anything that we need to do, lessons learned and something that we can move forward and implement in the next school year? So at first I will talk about general fund, the current school year. We will review budgeted versus actual, and there are some legislative changes that affected the current school year. And then we will move on to the next upcoming school year, and we will talk about general fund, the same legislative updates, kind of will give you a good idea of where we are with, in terms of revenue, expenses, fund balance. And then always, each year, there's always a trending hot topic. So this year, it's a tax relief fund and facility fund. So we will talk about those as well. So again, one bucket at a time, current school year, general fund. So for some of you, that snapshot may look familiar. So the step number one in each budget, let's figure out our units, because units, they dictate everything. So it's very important to get very close in estimating our units, because all the distributions, they're based per unit, on per unit amount. So, and the reason I keep including our past 2022-23 school year, because it's affecting the way we're budgeting our revenue right now. That was a good year. That was the only year, the most recent year, where all school districts were budgeted based on enrollment. So the true number of units that we should receive is 292 units. So now, last year, at this time, we were trying to figure out how much should we budget. And that was still a good year, because there is a protection rule, right? It says, don't worry, Idaho code protects you. You're at least guaranteed 97% of the prior year unit allocation. And then initially we budgeted 283 units. And then we thought, wait a second, everybody's gonna be protected, because this is 100%. And everybody's enrollment is gonna fall below 97, because 97 is not realistic. The Idaho, the state's average is 95 and below. So all districts are gonna be protected, and who's gonna pay for all of us? Us, because it's a self-funded plan. So the recommendation was to budget at least 3 to 4%, and we felt very uncomfortable, but we still did it, and I'm glad that we did, because that's exactly what happened. We received the email from the state, and they said, it's a phenomenon, just a one time, probably will never happen again, but you have to deduct at least 4.3% from your unit allocation, which is exactly where we are right now. So the reason I'm presenting this, because when I talk about the next year budgeting process, I would highly recommend to use a similar approach. Maybe not the same percentage, but still to reserve some units that we will have to share with other school districts. And I know the formula is quite complicated, and I did not include it in this presentation, but the slides that are actually attached to the agenda, the very last slide has a detailed breakdown how units are calculated for grades and the divisors and everything, if you would like to look at it at your own time. So, still in the current school year, there's some good news, and I took a snapshot from the actual motion that happened on March 22nd during the official budget hearing, and there was a motion to distribute an additional allocation to all school districts for the current school year. You probably, I don't know if you heard about this or not, that allocation has a nickname of GAP, like because it's the gap between enrollment and attendance. So instead of like calling it the way it is, so if you hear, oh, there was a gap payment one time. So and our allocation is estimated at $1.7 million, and it did go through, so it's official. And we should receive it within 60 days, over the course of 2 months, probably, within 2 payments. So that's good news. So with that said, and I can already probably, because my initial thought was, how does it affect our supplemental levy, right? Is it really an additional amount, or where does it fit within our budget? And hopefully I can answer your questions through my slides. So we're still in the current school year, and let's review our budget versus actual. So as you can see, we're very close, so there will be no need to revise the budget. Maybe we reduce expenses a little bit. So as you can see, the units, the attendance, I know 93-94 is not what we used to have, but we are above average statewide. So it's not good, but it's better than other districts. So some other districts have the attendance between 85 and 90. I wish it was 96 like it used to be, you know.
96, 97.
96, 97.
I wish it
but
was
we will take
100.
what we have.
Yeah, me too.
You know, things change. Within units, we're gonna be within one unit one way or another. So like I keep pulling the reports and we'll go, 270, 272, 273. So just based on the consistency, very close, there is no need to revise the budget. As you can see, the revenue is very close to what we budgeted. And there is a one-time supplemental payment additional. It was not budgeted because we were not aware of this. And as you can see, the expenses, when the expense amount is less than budgeted, I always say less is good. This is where I say less is good. So that means we will not have to use our contingency fund. And as you can see, that payment made a huge difference, right? The payment and the revenue, spending less than budgeted. The initial plan was to use $1.9 million out of our savings, and there will be no need to do it this year because of that payment. But it doesn't mean we wouldn't need to use this amount in the upcoming school year. So my predictions that the fund balance will remain the same between 21 to 22% for the current school year, this school year. So we're going to talk about the next school year. So good news is here. And do you have any questions?
So the budget includes like teachers' pay, all that stuff, right?
Yes.
Everything that's
Mhm.
from the school.
Majority of it, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because there's a legislature that's trying to change teacher contracts, so does that affect expenses and budget if that were to go through?
I probably need to look. Do you know what changes they're trying to make to the contract?
Not
I'll be
aware of
honest
That's
with you.
not,
Okay.
I don't know the whole
Yeah,
details,
but that's
I've heard
something,
the chatter.
something for me to research.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna make it through.
I don't know if
this
it's not or
session,
not, but it's there.
There's always something,
So,
right?
I was concerned about what that meant as far as like teachers and
Like the
Okay.
number of
their
days.
contracts, yes.
Okay.
How it affects their pay or
So
if it
thank
does
you.
or.
I will research and we'll get the answers for the next budget presentation.
The only question that I really have, and I guess it's more of a statement, I hope, is in this budget that we have, we don't have to pay for the 15 teachers that we're asking for the supplemental levy, or now, is that something that we have? I guess that's my question.
So, yeah, so yes and no. So right now,
We have
this
that
will
one-time
help, yes,
gap,
but this will help.
but I'd like to see us use that for other
Mhm.
things. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So the plan for this year we'll get it, let's say, in June, we don't use a dime, we just put it directly into the savings, so, and use it to budget for the next year.
Cause the original plan was to not, we didn't run a supplemental levy
Right.
for this school year, and we're
Right.
gonna use our
And we've been
savings.
kinda just like
Yeah.
up to the,
Yeah.
because we didn't run it, up to
Yeah.
that line.
And the money, that was promised by the last legislature, and then they did, part of that mechanism to get it to schools was to keep it at enrollment-based funding instead of attendance-based. They didn't make that change to the law, so the money sat there, and they were, you know, it was like historic
That's what
numbers,
they were
but it
talking
never got to the
Yeah.
schools, and so this was their solution to give that money, and we budgeted knowing that we weren't going to probably get that money,
Right.
so.
So it's
That's
nice
the
that
good
we
news,
have
we
it.
got
It's
it,
good.
yeah, so our fund balance, in other words, we didn't have to use our savings like we had planned, as much of it.
This is what we listened to Debbie
Exactly,
Criswell talk
yes.
about, the trapped money based on, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got
This-
it.
And she was upset because they
Yeah.
weren't gonna pass
There
it, so
was
they
no
had
way
it,
to,
yeah.
Yeah,
And
So
it did
good.
go through.
yes,
Sadly,
Got more
it's a one-time,
yeah, one,
so, but the conversations are not done, so they will try to make it ongoing. But for now, it's a one-time, it's always one-time, we'll take it.
Yes,
We
we
would like
will.
an ongoing, but we'll
Yes,
take
we
a
will
one-time
take
one,
it, yes, we will.
So, this is where we are with the current school year, so right now, I'm just going to move into the upcoming school year, and this is what all the budget presentations are going to be from now on. So the so there are two changes, really there is one change. The legislative change for this school year is, the current superintendent of public instruction is trying very hard to revise the formula and to revise it where all students are counted. And I did spend some time trying to estimate our allocations, and I love this formula. And I was hoping it will go through because it's really truly, it's going back to where we were 3 years ago. But unfortunately, they did not move forward. The good news, they did not kill the conversation. They did not drop it, so the conversations will keep happening. And this is what I think it was the alternative. We will just give you one time for this year, and we will keep talking about ongoing changes. Because, and it's not like they didn't like it, they just thought it was such a significant change, so they needed more time to review all pros and cons. So what that means for us, the formula is the same as last year. So what that means, there will still be a gap again, right? Because that payment was a one-time payment. And it's kind of saying the same message, just rephrasing it in a different way. So there is no additional gap payment, it was a one-time. But it will help us this year to close this gap.
Just one question, so why will there be a gap again, since we know there's not gonna be a payment, so then the budget should be based on the lower amount? Is that-
Yes, that's a good question. And the gap is, the units are only going down each year, so this is the gap. And it's really not the gap, it's the formula that needs to be revised. And they're trying really hard, so as you can see, the past 2022 year, 100%, 292 units. This is a semi-transition year, 97% of the prior year minus the protection. Then it goes 97% of the prior year minus the protection. So it's kind of set, like even if our attendance stays the same, it's kind of set to almost be the same or decrease each year instead of increasing. That's what they call a gap. And each year, and I mean they do, and each year they help us, but at the end of the school year. So every time, and I told Wendy, I feel like each budget season, I come in and tell you and I present the worst case scenario, and we're all gonna drown, and we're gonna use our fund balance. But then at the end of the school year, the state throws $2 million at us for the last 3 years, but they don't guarantee it, and we cannot budget it unless it's in the books. So we're hoping for another gap payment, but right now it's not it's not approved,
I was
unfortunately.
gonna say
This is that argument of
Mhm.
being funded on attendance when we have to pay for
Yeah.
enrollment.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
Makes
so we
sense.
have to have a teacher
Right.
based
So
on.
the gap is enrollment versus attendance.
Yeah, so
Right.
we have to come up with
Right.
that.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
used to be during the pandemic, we had
Right.
100%,
Mhm.
but now we don't, and now we have a gap to fill that we didn't have before that we budgeted.
Cause it
So-
costs basically the same thing amount whether they are attending or not, cause you're holding a seat for them.
Yep.
I
Right.
mean,
And so that's what Superintendent Critchfield was going after, was
Yeah.
like, we have this money,
right,
and our school districts need it, it's gap money between,
got it.
the daily average and the 100%.
And Brian, did you want to discuss the enrollment number? Because that might be what, you're maybe wondering about that too, so.
That's our current enrollment as of now. The 5705 was our 5-day enrollment. We've only dropped 26 kids throughout the entire year. I can tell you that I do this for our principals every month. Last year at this time, we dropped 123 students. To us, this means we're back to growing. Remember, there's a lot more choice than there ever was. And then in the high school world, you live where students choose to go online, they choose to go to alternate school, or they choose not to be, they have that age where you can choose not to finish. So our enrollment is starting to show that it's shifting, but we didn't predict any growth, just because, again, that's something you can't depend on. So Elmer is really good at budgeting, obviously, to not guess, but to be right on with our unit is amazing. To be where we're at is amazing. So this prediction is very conservative, that will be only, that will show a drop, but we dropped last year, so there's no reason. It's a tricky thing. If you look 5 years, we've grown about 3% on average. Last year we didn't, so that's why that prediction is, that's just our current roll. We're just saying we're gonna roll it up and we're gonna have the exact same amount of kindergartners. Really hard to predict whether we will or not. Does that make sense?
So what happens if the tax credit is approved?
The tax relief fund, the House bill,
That affects enrollment, correct?
the tax relief House bill, so what I know, it's gonna help us with our expenses. But I don't know, how would it affect
But it
our
it
enrollment?
doesn't help your operating funds
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah,
No, because
Those
I
are
was thinking more
proportion-
like enrollment, because if that is available, then that means parents will unenroll their kids if that's an option.
Oh, you mean,
Like the school
Like a
choice?
voucher?
yeah, voucher?
Or voucher.
Yeah, that didn't go
I was
anywhere
gonna
this
say
No,
it's
session.
it's a tax credit, so they're running a tax credit that
Yeah.
allows parents to essentially use their tax return to receive the credit if they decide to
Yeah.
go to a different school. So it's different than the voucher, but it's still there.
I've heard about
It did not go through this session, but it was discussed, yeah, the
It
tax
was
credit,
discussed.
which is a
It's
form
not
of
dead
voucher.
though.
Yeah, I think it is pretty dead. I heard it
I
wasn't going to
thought
be
it-
heard.
I thought it wasn't gonna be heard, that's what I
Yeah.
read.
That was my understanding, that it wasn't gonna be heard, but maybe this is something different that I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
heard of, so.
I listen to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I've
Not-
heard
not
about
because I
that
want to.
too.
It's just in my
you
home.
don't, yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard
Well,
about
it-
that too, actually.
Either way, I mean,
Yeah.
that would still affect enrollment, correct?
If it goes through, so what I've heard, I remember State was talking about it, and I'll have to confirm my own words, but there was a House bill where if a family opt in within a private school, and they will say yes on their tax returns, they will get like let's say $2,000 or $3,000 back, like child tax credit. But then there's some obligations with that, they have to stick with the school. Yeah, I mean, if there are no strings attached, I can see how families would unenroll their kids, and then enroll them back maybe later, but I haven't heard, any presentations from the state telling us that it went
Yeah.
through. But I would like to research just in case, it will affect the enrollment.
I don't wanna drag this out any longer, I just had a quick question about enrollment. If a student decides to do a hybrid, like, they take some classes online and they come, how does that affect our funding? Like, do we still get funding for that?
It
or-
depends on where they take the classes, so if they take them through IDLA, they can only enroll through
Okay.
us to do that. If they take them from, another provider, another school,
Okay,
then we would share that attendance,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
We get that unit.
And they'd have to be enrolled at least 2 hours here to
With-
get half,
like physically.
and 4
there.
hours
Oh,
for
for
full.
the, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you, that was all.
Good questions. All right, so, going back to the units, I know it's uncomfortable, and we were uncomfortable last year, but it didn't fail us, so my recommendation would be, the state says it's not gonna be 3% or 4% again, it was a phenomenal last year. But they said budget at least 1%, when they say 1%, I say 1.25, let's just, because you never know. And then, now, just a reminder, there's so many numbers and a lot of events going on, but just a refresher, and I will only talk about instruction, not the critical facility needs, because it's a different budget. But the initial need was $5 million, right? And the decision was to go 50-50 this year, hoping something will change with the state funding or some other changes, working on restructuring the budget, and ask the community only for a half, $2.5 million, and use our savings to cover another half, so we can sustain our operations for the next school year, just a decision for 1 year. And at that time, the decision was based like, whatever we do, let's at least try to keep our fund balance within 9% and above. So this is my navigator. So when we structure a budget, I'm gonna follow this guidance. And if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. We can meet. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a formal board meeting. We can meet during, in between.
As I say, I see the 15 teachers there, so if that passes.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Yes,
Gotcha,
yes,
thank you.
Thank you. So, now, I kind of separated revenue from the expenses. So we will go at, we will review the revenues first. How am I doing? 5 minutes? Okay, maybe like 10 more minutes. Sorry.
It's all good,
I
it's all
promise the
good.
next presentation is gonna be within 15 minutes, I promise. So the revenue, and as you can see, the numbers, they speak for themselves, and this is the gap that we're talking about. And it's like nobody's at fault. We have something, in Idaho code that's been there forever, and the state is trying to change it really, really hard, but it's like little steps at a time. But they're helping us each year with supplemental payments. But as you can see, this is our current revenue without that gap payment. It's $43 million. You would think so, we should get the same or more, but it's gonna be less. And some of it is not just because of units. Because as our funds are fading away, we will not be able to transfer $500,000 in indirect costs that we have been doing it for 3 years. And we're gonna have less in support units, hopefully more, but we'll budget less for now. And we'll probably earn less in interest, because this year was such a good year to earn interest in LJP. But the interest percentage is gonna drop eventually, so I'm gonna budget a little bit less. It's not just the state, it's state and local revenue. I'm just as a big picture, sharing an overall amount. And I'll talk about House Bill 521 Facility Fund. It came with terms and conditions. They will give us some money, but then they will take lottery funds. The trade is really good, but the lottery funds are going away. They used to be part of that bucket as well. And then, so the budget, one of the budgets is we're gonna consider supplemental levy just for instruction. I'll talk about the facility levy later. So, and as you can see, if you compare the revenue between 2 years, the difference is not quite significant. It should be more. And this is where the gap payment will become handy to keep us whole.
Okay.
So that's why the recommendation would be not to use it until next year.
Gotcha.
So, and the reason I'm showing it two separate, because audited financial statements and budgets, because it's the revenue from 2 different school years, I'll have to show it separate. So that way when you review financial statements, you're like, why is this amount everywhere? Why is this like separate? So you will know why. So you can bookmark and round it to $47 million, the revenue between 2 school years. Kind of this is the step number 1. Once I know the revenue amount, feel somewhat comfortable, then we can talk about expenses. So when it comes to the expenses, the easiest and the standard process would be everyone do not go above $46 million because that's the standard practice, but we know that's not the year where we can say that. So this is the year where we will have to dip into our fund balance as planned. So, but right now, so when they have meetings with all the departments, when we go through our negotiations and we review our salary schedules, I always need a boundary amount. I always set a boundary amount. At what point do we say, okay, it's really over to our budget, over our plan, we have to go back and revisit again and see, maybe we can cut down on something. So, with that said, like our current expenses are at $44 million. That's what's happening today, and then there's gonna be inflation, salary adjustments. We're moving $2.5 million ESSER expenses. But not everything is just add-on, right? We're also working on budget restructuring, right? We're having some savings, we're reducing our expenses. We're negotiating with our vendors. Then the salaries that are currently funded by lottery funds, they will move to a different bucket accordingly because it will make sense. They will be funded differently, so that will help us here as well. And this is what I'm going to present in May with the details and attach the spreadsheet so you can see how the budget process is going. And so right now my recommendation to set that as a boundary amount and not go above that when we combine all our expenses, when we negotiate our salaries for our teachers. So that amount will help us to keep the fund balance at least at 12%. I know it's a little bit higher than 9%, but we have a lot of unknown ahead of us. So the recommendation would be, the first iteration would be to try to keep it above 12%. And then if it's not feasible, then, I'll come back and we'll communicate in May. Do you have any questions? I know it's a lot of information. So this is where we're gonna focus during our next presentation. How much do we spend? All right. So, and this is just an update, sorry. 4 years ago, we started the project. We had to adjust our salaries for our classified staff to be competitive because we were the 5th one from the bottom statewide, but we didn't have the budget to adjust all of them at once. So we decided to do it over the course of 5 years, and we selected professional groups based on hard to fill positions and based on the amounts. If the department is big, then we will take one department at a time, or we will combine several smaller departments. So that way we could manage our expenses. And the good news, we left the smallest department for the last year, technology, so that's the only department that's gonna get adjusted. And from now on, it's just the regular cost of living adjustments. So no more spikes anymore.
And
Are we
we'll
taking-
remove the custodial.
That's it.
Yeah.
You were thinking a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
We're on the same page on that one.
Great.
And so really quick, I apologize going a little bit over time, but it will really be a good information because June is gonna be here before we know it. So I noticed when the state folks or even the legislators, when they talk about tax money, they combine all this bucket in one and they just call it tax money, tax relief money, which is okay for their conversations, but for us it's very important to remember they're 2 different buckets and they have 2 different requirements. So bucket number 1, it's not new, it happened last year, and it will continue happening. It's called Tax Relief Fund, House Bill 292. The only thing we can do is pay off our existing loan. We cannot do anything else with that. There is a list of things you can do after you pay it off, but as of today, that's all we can do with this, and that's what we do. So, when we talk to our counties through the L2 form, we say, this is what we need, this is what the state gave us, only collect the difference from our taxpayers. And we will do the same for the next school year budget. We'll include supplemental bond. As you can see, the amount is way less than it was last year because we're paying off our bond. And by that time, I will know exactly how much the state gave us, and I will only ask counties to collect the difference. So this is how we're using it to reduce the tax rate for our taxpayers. Another bucket, the yellow one, it's the new facility. That's what everyone is talking about. House Bill 521, it comes with a list of terms and conditions. I kind of pulled out what applies to us because we can learn more about it later, but just right now, we could use it for construction, renovation, maintenance. Please do not ask me why they put not allowable. They listed athletic facilities as unallowable expense. Hopefully it will change. It was just like, athletic facilities, you cannot use this funds for those. So there's some questions that we asked the state and waiting for some clarifications. But there's some conditions. They take away lottery funds, but then they give us more money in exchange. That's a good trade. So, and there's some to-dos. Things that have to happen before we get access to those funds, and as you can see, it will probably take us good 12 months before the money are deposited into the district's account. And the estimated allocation is either $2 million a year, could be more, or we can get a lump sum and deposit, which is highly recommended because it will help us to earn some interest if we use this, if the district uses this money gradually. So good news here, and it seems like everything is approved. It's just a matter of actually getting access to the funds.
And what's happening with the lottery money if it's not coming to the school?
They're all combined. They took all these little buckets, so they're all here.
Okay. It's still coming.
It's still coming. Yeah, it's part of this, and that's why. So currently, we are using our lottery funds to pay salaries for our maintenance department, salaries and contracted services. So those expenses will move over here accordingly. So not really losing it, it's just part of this amount right now. Moving from one bucket to another. And this is just a summary, and I'm not gonna go through that, but it's just for you to look at it later because I'm already over my time. But so the next presentation, we're not gonna go through all of this, we're just gonna go and dive. We're gonna compare like how close were we on our revenues and how comfortable we feel with our expenses. That's it.
I just want to thank you for taking the time to put that all together for us, to explain it to us, and I appreciate what you've done, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. It's a lot, it's a lot. So, Superintendent Johnson, are we on the Kuna Awards and Communications?
Yes, Chairman Nixon and trustees, we are lucky to work with Almira. She is a leader not only in our district, but also in the state. She does a great job explaining things, so
Breaking
thank
it
you,
down.
Almira, for
Yep.
explaining that, so people understand it, and not just gibberish as it sometimes comes through, so thank you. As always, Chairman and trustees, we like to celebrate those employees in our school district that live our Kuna way, that live our values. And we have some amazing staff to celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate Tammy twice today. So once as a nominee, as you can see here, and later in the celebrations. We have Creed, who is also a graduate and has returned to teach for us, Kuna Middle School. We have Chef Gwen, as you guys know, you've benefited from her students and their culinary delights that they have learned from her. And then Sky Fletcher, who is in our extended resource at Silver Trail. So great news, there was some great people that work for us. And then I'll just keep trucking here with the communications. I mentioned that Tammy would be celebrated twice, and this is a really big deal. Tammy was nominated for the Presidential Math and Science Excellence Award. She is one, I think, of 2 people in the entire state of Idaho that was nominated to receive this. So that's, they celebrated her kind of impromptu. The state came and brought balloons to her class. There's a little Facebook post out on our school district Facebook page. Her parents were there to celebrate with her. She will then be moved on to the national level, which is a really cool thing. So we learned today that I guess they're a little behind in their awarding of this presidential award, but we should know hopefully relatively soon. So wanted to celebrate Tammy tonight for being one of our rock star teachers out there. So, and validated beyond us. So thank you, Chairman and Trustees.
Just to be nominated is an
Oh, it's
honor.
huge.
So it's great.
It's huge.
And, we all want to see those math scores go up. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And before we call, I don't know if I'm doing this properly because you guys know how good I am at this, but I do want to take time out from the consent agenda to let you guys realize and to let our community realize that we have a Teacher Appreciation Week coming up, the first week in May. And we have a proclamation that we are doing as a school board, so I just kind of want to read it so that you know what you're agreeing to. And because we just celebrated some of our great teachers. Teacher Appreciation Week is observed annually during the first full week in May. Whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education, and whereas teachers encounter students of wildly differing backgrounds, and whereas our country's future depends upon providing quality education to all students, and whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing community service, and whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of this community. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Kuna School District Board of Trustees proclaims May 2nd to May 6th, 2024 to be Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Kuna School District Board of Trustees strongly encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers and school staff for their dedication and devotion to their work. So now, I just want to make sure we read that. I think they need to be recognized. And so now I'll look for a second of approving that consent agenda.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving right along. Are there any delegations? All right, we have a Mitchell A. Stark who would like to speak to us. Just so that you know, we have some laws or rules that we can't really say yay or nay. We appreciate you coming and talking to us. We give you 3 minutes, and so you're on.
Thank you. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, Superintendent Johnson and staff. So my name is Mitchell Stark. I'm from Emmett, and I'm here to talk to you about, I know your sister.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going into his minutes.
Sorry.
You are.
We won't count that again.
I'm here to talk to you about the ACE mentorship program. And the ACE stands for Architecture, Construction, and Engineering. It's a national nonprofit organization with 77 affiliates throughout the United States. We serve 10,000 plus students every year in our program. And it started 30 years ago in New York City by some large construction firms, Turner, Hensel Phelps, who you know, working on the Meta project, and many others, because they saw a need for getting young people involved in architecture, construction, engineering. Right now, the average age of our ACE professional is 52 years old. So you can imagine a lot of these people are retiring. For every 5 that retire, only 2 go into these professions. So what we do is we work with high school students in the after-school program. Right now, we're at Swan Falls High School. Principal Reno has been very supportive of our program, along with Rick Brown, the carpentry teacher. And I presented to Mr. Kilgore's class last year and this year, and Mr. Brown's class, probably 3 or 4 presentations for each teacher, trying to get students involved in the ACE program. So here in Kuna, it's our first year here. We have 8 students involved in the program, and what we do is we take them through a hypothetical project for 14 weeks. From 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we feed the students as well. We also take care of those students that may have allergies, such as gluten or dairy. We provide for them as well. And we take them through, well, like I said, a hypothetical project. So we show them how floor plans start. We show them about structural engineering. We show them about all the different things that go into making up a building, such as a school. And so I'm here really to invite you to the final presentations, which is in the brochure that you've got. It's in the middle part, the piece of paper. It's April 23rd. It's going to be at Boise State University, correct? That's it. And so I would hope that you might come to see how your students are doing, what they're doing. We also last year gave away $8,000 in scholarships.
Thank you.
And okay, thank you.
Do you want to say just a few couple?
Just real quick, in the little pamphlet right here, on the inside panel right here, it kind of explains what our program's all about. And real quick, we have 2 more sessions at Swan Falls. We meet on Thursday from 4 to 6. So if you want to come and see your students in action, you're invited.
Thank you, Mr. Stark, I appreciate that. All right. So next on our agenda is review of our plan to mitigate. And I believe that's you, Superintendent Johnson.
Chairman and trustees, I really appreciate the councilman coming in and chatting with us and sharing some of the work that he's doing. I'm gonna just kind of review where we've been, where we currently are, and maybe some conversation around where we may wanna go. You'll notice on the agenda there isn't an action item because typically we don't usually ask you to act on something without some discussion first. So it gives us an idea of where you might wanna go. So if you have questions, we can get answers to you before you actually vote on something. So I understand there was a little bit of a discussion about kind of what our current plan is to mitigate and create partnerships with developers. And so I thought I would just kind of do a little bit of review. I saw former trustee Russ Johnson in the audience just a minute ago, and he left, and I just thought maybe I could just tap into him if he's here. But just a reminder of our background. So as a key part of our strategic plan, we heard from our community for, gosh, it started I think about 10 years ago. People coming to the board and saying, hey, you need to do something about all the growth that's coming into Kuna. Prior to us having a plan, we kind of were Switzerland. We stayed neutral. We didn't do anything. We didn't show up. We didn't say no. We didn't say yes. But under the leadership of the board at the time, we formalized a plan so that we were kind of dealing with different developers in different ways, and we heard all sorts of pushback on all of that, and so we said we want a consistent plan that would provide our staff direction. So in July 2022, the board directed our staff to put together this plan. And here's some key components of that. That we would share the impact of developments on school capacity, because that was one of the first things that developers were questioning is our capacity. So Brian went to work really intensely on what is each school's capacity. That we would ask developers to voluntarily pay a mitigation partnership or mitigation contribution. We landed on this $3,200 per door. That was a result of a study that was done, applying kind of the same approaches that cities use when they develop an impact fee or charge an impact fee on the development. And that all that information is on our website should you need it. And that we would support developments that partner with the district. This is probably, I don't want to say controversial, but it's been questioned. And the rationale for that piece of the plan is that we had been told by city councils, not just Kuna's, but Canyon County, we've been told by Meridian that, there's not much we can do to say no. We heard a different view tonight from Middleton. There's not much we can do to say no, so we should at least get something to offset the cost of growth to our taxpayers. So that's kind of the rationale. And that in the meantime, we would try to work to change laws, codes, that sort of thing. And we've been doing all of those things. So what's happened since that plan? We've shared the impact in our plan with other school districts, with the cities, with anybody who will listen to us. We submit letters detailing the impact of development. We attend, testify. We've had a growth committee. You heard Danielle talk a little bit tonight about working with people and helping them know what to say when they testify, because it's scary to get up and stand, and talk. Anyway, so that's a part of our getting involved. And then we have continued to ask developers to pay a voluntary mitigation fee. And we gave an update in October, and I think in our new board training, we also kind of went through that as well. So we haven't really received cash contributions. There's been a promise from one development to provide that, but they haven't developed 100% of their homes yet, so we haven't received those funds. We have land donations and pledges. As you know, we've accepted a couple of land donations that we could use to build schools or do other things. And I'm going to talk more in detail because we've had an interesting development in that area that we need your guidance on. And then developers have asked to pay for a bond campaign. And it says that they've asked to pay, but it was in trade for us to not fight development. So the board said no thanks about that. And then we said we would support developments that partner with the district. So that we would oppose where there was no voluntary contribution. Again, with that thinking that it's going to pass anyway, so we should get something for the school district to help offset the costs to taxpayers. So we know that sometimes our position may change when a developer might bring something forward when they have in the past, maybe spoken against or not been willing to work with us. And that's where I think we kind of get stuck sometimes. And then we have continued to work to change laws. As you know, Chairman Nixon has been a part of this process for quite some time, same with Trustee Bruce, of advocating for some laws to be changed. And we have not seen any sort of school impact fee. In fact, we've been told it's probably like the supermajority, it will never happen. But maybe, right? We still always have hope. And then we've also, with the help of our district's attorney and Russ Johnson, we were labeled a critical agency, but no developments have been denied based on our testimony. So I think Middleton's takes it to a whole different level with their plan. Anyway, so we need your direction in kind of these two areas, and then maybe a little bit of discussion of some other interesting things that are happening. Again, this is not an action item, but we're gonna take your input and say, okay, what should we bring back, if anything, for you to act on when it comes to this topic of growth. So, as I said, we've accepted a couple of different, I think two in the last couple of years, 10-acre or 11-acre sites that could be future school sites, or we could do something else with it. In the last couple of months, we've had a few offers to accept kind of as the mitigation impact to provide the district with acreage of less than 5 acres. 10 minimum for an elementary school, if that kind of gives you a sense of the size. It is a win for the developer because it's their green space, but it's not quite, we're not quite clear how it's a win for us. So I'll kind of go through the pros. We know that the community in general needs more space for parks and practice fields and that sort of thing. We potentially could generate some revenue if we leased it, but the reality is with our school youth activities, we don't really make money on that because we want to be a good partner to them because they're usually volunteers, that are involved in our youth activities. It could help us with some of our niche needs, like we've talked about. A land lab has a possibility. We didn't get that grant. But maybe some sort of other interesting projects. And then maybe it could be something that we could trade with the city. Or, another positive that I put on here is maybe there could be something we could say, okay, Kuna Youth, softball, baseball, we'll lease it to you if you guys want to practice on it, I don't know. So there's some possibility. Less than 5 acres is probably not something that the city's really interested in putting a bunch of time and money in either, although we haven't had formal discussions about that. And then there's some cons, as you can see. Since we're really not in the park business, even though we're kind of in the park business, it would be another thing for us to take care of and have to probably fence and mow and irrigate, which would be an expense and not necessarily a revenue to get that expense in place. Especially as you just saw earlier with the always continued fiscal responsible and fiscal conservative approach that we take when we put our budgets together. So this could kind of throw a wrench in that. And we've been trying to kind of get out of the Parks and Rec business, and have that be kind of more of the city's responsibility, and we would partner. This kind of puts us right back in that arena. And then we can't sell the property because it's that development's green space. So I'll stop there and see what you think for this particular
I don't mind speaking up.
interesting thing.
I do not, if it's, first of all, we have 2 10-acre spots.
Yeah.
And that will help,
And 100
hopefully.
acres, right?
And 100 acres,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, but thank you to your family, yeah, I'm just gonna say thank you as I point to.
Yeah.
But that we can build on. If we keep getting the 10-acre spots, it goes back to the cons. Then we have to budget taking care of it, responsibility.
Yeah, we can rent out 40 acres to a farmer to farm it,
Yeah.
and have it be productive, which
Not
is
sure
what
that's
should
green
be.
space though.
5 acres, less than 5 acres, a little
Yeah.
bit hard.
Well, and
yeah.
when it comes to 5 acres, I think it's somebody just wanting to say, here you go, 5 acres, lucky you, check the box, but it doesn't do us any good at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's personally what I'm looking for in the mitigation field.
Well, I feel like too, we're at capacity, and as we accept land, it's not solving our capacity
Right.
problem, and the
Right.
community is actually getting frustrated with the fact that, yes, so many pros to accepting land, but the one con is it's not solving any problem, and yet we're still bringing in more kids.
Yeah.
So as we say yes to a developer for land, now we're bringing in 2,000 kids or an extra, and we don't have room for them, especially as like he was saying, city council has already approved things from years and years ago.
Yeah,
And now
about
they're starting
3,000
to build.
homes.
So now we're gonna end up with 2,000 kids at least from what's already been approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, saying yes to land, because it doesn't solve our biggest issue, my answer is no for right now. It doesn't mean in the future it can't change. But also the city is developing and creating a field capacity. Like they have this whole thing they're developing for fields and generating different uses for the field complex. So they are solving part of the problem. And then also, parents were helping with our green space so that KYSB could use the fields, and then it became an issue.
Yeah.
Because I dedicated all this time and money into helping the school with the land or the green space, and now the high school needs to come in and use the field, and that just is not right for our kids. But the reality is the high school takes precedence over KYSB, but parents have a problem with that because they feel like their kids, because they put the time and effort in, their kids should be a priority. And it's not that we're not taking care of our community, because I feel like we've well taken care of our community, and the city hasn't, because it wasn't a priority and it never has been to create that space for athletics. And so we did come in and say, hey, we are more than willing to help our community, but now it's like there's always some kind of argument of like, well, you're not helping the community and you're not doing this, but at the end of the day, schools are first.
Yeah.
And if the teams need fields, that does come first. So there's almost more cons at this point than there are pros.
And I also think that all land donations, large or small, should come before the board before we accept them, just because.
Which is our practice.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, yeah, because I just feel like they're giving us junk land, like, probably. Like, it's clear that you donate the least amount possible. And how many elementary schools do we need? And nobody's gonna have a high school or a middle school in the middle of their subdivision. So like, even 10 acres in the middle of a subdivision isn't of value to us after how many of our
We already have
elementary
2, and that's
Yeah,
what I'm
we've got
saying.
2, and so, I mean, I think land is, 100 acres, that we feel like would be great, yeah. I mean, we can use that later, that's farmable maybe, that's tradable, that's sellable, but in a subdivision designated green space, that's trash from us. Like, I don't see any value in that at all.
Yeah, but I do see some value, but it has to be at least 10 acres where we can build, and at a place where we feel we
Where we
need to
need it.
build.
Yeah.
Where we may not have land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where we may not have land, then
Yeah.
that's a case by case to me.
Case by case, yeah.
To me, but the 5 acres, no, and I agree with what trustee Bruce is saying, we become park and recs.
Yeah.
And we're
And
a
that just
school,
costs us money.
and we're in a small rural community, so we have tried to partner with them
Yeah,
for our
absolutely.
children. And now there is some pushback on it. So, yeah, I don't think we need to be in the park and rec
And I don't
business.
really know who wants a land lab in the middle of their subdivision either, and I don't know what a Haven House is, but I don't know if people really want that in their subdivision.
I think it was an example of,
Yeah.
like, we were donated a lot with,
Sure.
to build a house for
Sure.
our construction trades to do
Yeah.
that. And then they could sell it,
Oh, God.
and that profit would go back into the school district. So
Okay.
It was an innovative idea from
Sure.
one of the developers in Canyon County.
Which I thought was a good idea.
think
Yeah,
we need
but then we
cash.
also had complaints, about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we've
we
had
had
complaints.
complaints about, oh, I can't believe you allowed them to let the kids do a trade, and I'm like, at this point, nobody's happy.
Well, except I will say that is a really forward-thinking thing.
Yeah.
And I went to Elevate Charter School, where they're doing CTE.
Yeah.
And they're taking at-risk students and giving them a chance to have jobs. And I think as a board member with kids graduating from Kuna High School, if they can get construction jobs or architecture or do those type of things, then that's a positive thing for them to do and have that experience before they leave.
Yeah.
And so I kind of liked that idea, and
Yeah.
I still do. I think it's forward thinking,
Yeah.
in my opinion, but that's a
Well, like
different
this kind of
situation.
thing is super good for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, definitely,
And it's not costing us money, right?
Right.
no.
No,
No, and this
It's
isn't cost us.
helping supplement
Yeah.
the programs that we
Yeah,
have.
and this
Right.
isn't cost us money either, but,
But
Um,
it does.
It does, 'cause,
Oh.
yeah.
We're gonna have to fence it, irrigate,
And
mow,
insure.
no, I'm just talking about,
insure.
I'm talking about
yeah.
the Haven House.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm talking about the
No,
Haven
that's-
House, not the other, no, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I just would like to see what else, I mean, the 5 acres, you know, and I agree with what trustees have said. We have 2 10 acres,
Yeah.
you know,
Recent,
case by
yeah.
case.
We have 2 10 acres and no money to build a school on it yet. So I
Right.
think probably we need to focus on building those out prior to accepting more space.
Yeah, but however, I do feel good about going to our community and saying, hey, we don't have to bond for this
For the land.
land, we've already got it.
Can you
And I
just
appreciate
mention quickly, like, general area of those 2 10 acres?
One is over here,
Yeah.
which is very important to me,
Patagonia.
is,
Patagonia.
yeah, east, and the other one, is that the one off of Black Cat?
Yes.
Yes.
Cross the road.
Good.
Yes, off of
This
Black
away.
Cat, kind of in
Yeah.
my area.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And if I remember correctly, that's up against the railroad, which is what I
Right.
Yeah.
told you about.
So kind of 2
Different parts.
different areas, which are kind of valuable. but-
Yeah, and that's why I
Where
said,
subdivisions are going.
yeah, and that's why I said it'd be a case-to-case situation,
Yeah,
but
like
the
case by
5
case.
acres, I don't consider that a case-to-case.
Like, don't even really bring it to us.
Yeah.
Kind of a situation, like
Yeah, that's what I'm
automatically
thinking.
deny, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 5 acres,
Because
I'm
you can't,
definitely,
like, we don't really wanna be in the Parks and Rec.
No.
10 acres, we can possibly do
Yeah.
something. We-
depending on where it's at.
Depending on where it's at, so on a case-by-case basis maybe, but cash is preferable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cash.
Thank you,
Cash
that's
would be
really
great.
helpful. That input is very helpful.
At 3,200 per house would be
Yeah.
acceptable, but
But
yeah.
it's for building, so I feel
Yes.
like that's the other thing,
Right.
like, it's not just for freestanding, like, it's
Right.
literally for
Yeah.
building, and I feel like that's the other caveat of like, oh, well, what do you do for the money? Well, we've already said, it's to build,
Yeah.
so, just to put that out there too.
Yeah, it's really to help us. And I would hope our community would see some due diligence that we have been trying to do by lowering the tax base, by trying to do all that we can do, to be able to bond and to add on to our community.
Yeah.
So,
I'll keep trucking along here. And then I thought, you already kind of discussed this, with the councilman who was here and shared. So I thought I'd love to know, we could come back with, we are in support of this, we want to advocate for our council to consider something like this, bring it forward to them, you know, I heard a little bit of all of those things. Would you direct us to do that, and we can come forward in our May meeting and
I'm okay with
have a
that.
resolution?
I feel comfortable
Okay.
with that.
Yes.
Also,
There's a couple
of
that
course.
would accept
Yeah.
that.
I think
I'll
give
talk
it
to the
to
guy.
him.
Okay, great.
I think give it to them, if they can get it to happen, then great, you know,
Yeah.
but
I also
have my
wanna,
question marks about that, but I feel like it's worth a try.
Well, we'll come back in May
everything's worth a
with an
try.
action item around that, so then it's a board supported
I
or
also
not.
wanted to send a letter from our board to the mayor of Middleton saying
Yeah.
that we appreciate the work that their city has been doing on
Yeah.
this.
I like that.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I figured since you talked about it, that'd be a quick item. And then, just wanted to put this out here. I know, you have heard some concerns about our approach, where we support developments that partner with the district and oppose developments that don't. And that is, we are currently still doing that because that has been what the board adopted and directed us to do, but I didn't know if that was something that you wanted us to continue or to reconsider or keep going forward.
My opinion is to continue doing what we're doing. I did talk with some P and Z members. They don't know if we've accepted or what's
Right.
been going on. They accept those developments without knowing, supposedly, what we've decided, if that makes sense. So they don't know.
We have a letter and testify in every single development that's before them.
Right.
They don't, we've been told by the city's attorney that they can't know what deal was made.
And that's exactly what I've
So
heard.
we haven't shared that.
Yes, and so when they vote, they don't know what's been done or said. So to me, I think that's a safety for us, you
Yeah.
know, that they're still voting for that off what they they consider, not
Yeah.
what we are pushing towards them,
Yeah.
I guess is what I wanna say.
So I kind of feel like it would be best if we make sure to state, which is probably obvious, that our schools are at capacity in every testimony. And then just say, we're happy to work with those that are willing to partner with us. Like, I think I think that seems like a little bit more, and I don't really care if it's fair. I know people are saying fair, but fair isn't really what I am worried about. But I feel like letting everybody know we're still at capacity, no matter what the subdivision or development is, and then just say, we're pleased to work with this development because they're paying what would be almost the equivalent of what do you call it?
An impact.
An impact fee. And so to me, that's like really paying for development, for the growth, and so I think just making sure to say, we're at capacity. We still have the problem, but this development we support because they're willing to pay what to help us.
Revise the letter.
But we've been told that we can't say that piece of it, that they are willing to work with us.
No, but you can
Because
revise the
because
letter
the
to where
P&Z
it
can't
says
know.
capacity storage we build it regardless if they're working with us or not, they know. Like, that is part of the thing, and as he said, and I've heard before, is they almost have the right to say no to capacity. I think they're still trying to figure that out because we are a public entity.
Because those are kind of two different
Well,
directions,
and we are
right,
a
that
public
we would
entity,
take.
and it is in the code that, so I know that it sounds like every attorney has like their own reason or rhyme for
Yeah.
saying yes or no. But it should always be in there, because they should know, like, we don't have any room for any kids, period.
I was gonna say, I understand the fairness issue, and I've thought about this long and hard. And I'm on a school board, and my main mission is the kids. And I wanna do whatever I can do, whether it's fair or not, so I'm with you a little bit on that whatever we can do to get what we can get to further our schools and to lower class sizes and to do the best we can. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So and if we're saying no to land, then we're pretty much saying no to everyone, so unless you give us money.
Cash.
So I think too, like,
We want dollars.
revising it, and pretty much everyone's gonna hear a no.
Okay, so we'll come back to you. Thank you for that input. And this isn't an action, obviously tonight's a discussion, so that we could put some options together based on what you just shared with us that you would actually vote on, if it's a revision to our plan, an update to our plan, a letter of support to the mayor supporting this, a similar proposal. Might be multiple things that we bring
Yeah,
before you.
I wonder if we could say something like, and obviously I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know, but I think if we could say, while the school's at capacity, we appreciate this developer as a Kuna School District partner, and they don't know really what, or some way, creative way to say that they are working with us, and so we support this particular development based on, I don't know how you can legally say it.
I don't know how you could
But
do
I
that.
would really like to still make the statement that we still have the issue, we're still.
Well, and I
Like,
think
I
the
think that's
frustration
important.
came from because we accept land, all of a sudden we're a partner, but I think if we're in consensus that we're saying no to that right now, then the frustration for the letter kind of dissipates a little bit, so.
I don't know if I'm completely in favor of saying no to all the land. I mean, there might be something we can use, and that's why I wanna go case by case.
Case by case.
But I don't want 5 acres for sure.
Yeah.
That's nothing that we
Less,
can
and
do
it's
with that.
less than.
And I
Less
think we
than that.
want-
There's nothing I can do with that.
And really
Yeah.
nothing that must be maintained as green space or
Right.
cannot be sold, like
Right.
those are,
Yeah.
that's trash.
Right,
Yeah.
Like,
right,
no.
right.
Okay. Thank you for this discussion, and I hope that it allows you to be thinking too, when we come back in May with like, what about this, what about this, what about this, and in line with updating our plan.
And I just have one other question,
Yeah.
what about the bus, like, how's that different than paying us money? Like, cause they got to choose what it was for, or?
Yeah, what the current plan says is it's 3,200 per door, or the equivalent is what our actual plan says. And so sometimes people, they don't wanna give us a per door, but they might pay for something that would help us deal with our capacity issues. Busing is one of those we always put it out there because it is a capacity issue, right? As we grow, we need more buses and they're expensive, so.
Well, like, do you happen to know what the pro to a developer would be to specify that they're paying for a bus if it's the equivalent of a per door? Like, I mean, why not just let us decide what we are spending the money on?
I don't know how to answer that unless you
I
do.
know Mr. Reno has to sit
Reno?
with these developers a lot.
Well, it's because it's how their organization, like, those developers, how they want to distribute that money. So in the
Could be a
bus,
write-off.
in the bus department one, it could be a twofer for them, right? They're meeting our needs of the 1,300 per door by giving us a bus, meeting our capacity needs, but then they can obviously write that off as a donation, right? So it's benefiting them while benefiting us. And the same thing with all the green space requirements in the subdivision. We get a 10-acre land donation in Patagonia, but we're also meeting their green space requirement.
Because of our fields, yeah.
So developers always do something to benefit them and us.
I think we
Win-win.
need the cash.
I'm in agreement.
No more buses, we need a school.
We do. So that's where we'll come to you in May with some options reflecting the input that we received. So there'll be more discussion, I'm sure, but this is very helpful. Thank you, Chairman and trustees.
All right. Let's see, where am I on this agenda thing?
Where are we?
Oh, we're on number-
Second.
Okay, number 2, budget restructuring, CFO Feather.
So this one's gonna be easy. One of them is no news, the same approach, and the second one is good news. So Director Graves has presented most of it last month, but there's two more RFPs to review. So one of them is for our current general liability insurance. It's the insurance that covers all of us as the employees, you as trustees, and if there's anything happens to the building or anything, so that's where the general liability insurance kicks in. And I was very surprised, and one of the things that I discovered that there are not that many companies here in the state that have that much cash in a pool that can offer that sort of the liability insurance. So we only received one proposal from the same company. There was a second pending proposal from a different company, but they withdrew it at the last moment because they didn't feel like they had enough information, or and they asked for more time, so maybe for the future. But as of right now, we have one company, it's the same company, and Director Graves has been working really hard with them, going through every single list of items. Is there something that we're insuring that we no longer have? Something that's not worth of insuring? Something that costs more to pay for a deductible, like why do we have it on the list? Because we pay per item on the list. So right now, we're going through every single item, and in May, we will have our premium, that's our current cost. But in order for them to move on with the process, we have to accept their RFP. So RFP doesn't have the amount, it's just us signing an agreement with the company that they're gonna provide the insurance for us. So since this is the only proposal, so the recommendation would be to accept the proposal for the next school year. Hopefully there will be some savings in here. And the second insurance is workers' compensation insurance. For example, if an employee gets hurt on the job, then they can file a claim, and then the insurance will cover their medical bills, or maybe the time that they have to stay at home to recover. Something that I learned as well, based on Idaho code, we can only purchase the insurance from the state insurance plan. That's the only company, it's the state agency that can provide the insurance, unless we decide to provide our own insurance and provide a self-funded plan. So there are only two options. So, and we received a proposal from our current vendor to be our middle person, to be our broker, to help us with the self-funded plan and potentially save $224,000. And the major savings come from us transitioning from for custodial services from employment to contractors. So, and most of the claims come from the physical labor, and because of that, and because of the 5-year analysis, on average, we spend up to $300,000 in our claims. Why would we pay $500,000 in premiums? It's like a loss of $200,000 each year. So they were very confident in our conversations that they can help us with a self-funded plan and potentially save us this annually. So that's the recommendation. It's worth of trying, you know, it's not, it will only be the same or better, so it can get worse. But they charge for their services. So that's the standard fee of $30,000 to be a middle person and to help them with a self-insurance plan. So currently we don't have a broker. We're just automatically insured with a state plan, and we pay what they tell us to pay. There is no negotiations, there is no. So the recommendation would be to accept their proposal 1 year at a time and see. We'll never know unless we try. And with that said, the action items, hopefully to accept both proposals unless you have any issues or concerns.
So you want us to accept those at 1 year at a time. So do I have a motion?
Yes, 1 year at a time.
Do I have a motion to,
Sorry, can I ask a question prior to
Sure.
that? When would we be able to get the proposed costs for the liability insurance?
May 1st
So
of
can
2024.
we put that on the agenda for May instead of now, so that
We
we
could do
know?
that.
Because it feels kind of strange to accept it without knowing how much it is.
We could do that.
so that's for the general liability
Uh-huh.
insurance. Okay, so we need to maybe make a motion that we want to wait till May.
I think it's responsible to know how much.
I'm fine with that. So do I have a motion?
I would make a motion that we move the general liability insurance proposal to the May agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aye, all right. Second proposal is for workers' compensation insurance. Do I have a proposal? A motion?
A motion to just accept the vendor that she gave us for the workers' compensation insurance.
For 1 year at a time, correct?
Correct.
Do I have a second?
I couldn't hear it, I'm sorry.
Oh, do you want to say it a little louder, Kirsty?
I make a motion to accept the worker compensation insurance services as presented per 1 year proposal.
With Morton and Company.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All right, Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Hillary? And I. All right.
Thank you.
And now we're second reading of policies. You're up, Mr. Graves.
Yeah, and these are really easy ones. If you remember, we had
Change something.
brought this to our committee, and we said, hey, wait a month, and then we did our fixes, and I put the first month on there instead of the second month, so the second read just shows you that we corrected it.
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
Yep.
do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the second reading of policy 504, student harassment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All right, Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael? Hillary?
Aye.
An aye for me. All right, moving right along to the third reading.
The
policies.
third reads are even quicker and easier.
Yep.
The habitual truant,
Should we see?
hours required.
That was the only thing we asked for last time.
Yeah, instead of days, that way if a student just missed one class, they didn't get punished for all the whole day.
The whole day.
Hours is what our faithful CIA director recommended.
Okay.
Sounds really cool to see.
Okay, I just had one little question, I'm sorry, on policy 676.
Do you want me to do them one at a time?
Oh, you kid, yes, sorry.
Yes, one at
That'd be a
time.
good time.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the third reading of policy 522, habitual currency.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Hillary? Aye.
The third one, you did not hear a second read change. Our nurses made one word change multiple times. When it says will, that means they have to no matter what. They asked that this say may here in accordance with here in the exclusion part, they also asked May, that way they could look at each case independently as far as excluding a kid for school.
So they wanna be able to possibly allow a child to come to school if they aren't in compliance?
They said a lot of times what happens is the appointment is planned and they can show that, or there was a reason that they did the opt-out.
The exemption that
The
the state
exemption.
has. So they're still trying to allow students to come to school if they have an exemption or their appointment is pending prior to registration.
Yep. All right, do I have an action, or do I have a motion for policy 565?
I make a motion to accept the third reading of 565 immunization requirements policy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any discussion? All right, let's go. Kirsty?
Aye.
Michael? Hillary? I'm aye. Okay.
676, we were prepared to bring you changes from the third read because we got another update for the lawyer. However, there were no changes.
Well, I just had a question. It says 6 through 12. Do we presently have 6 through 12? That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then with the synergy move,
We
also-
will,
we'll
with
have
the
it two
synergy
different
move,
places.
correct?
But currently, we're doing our bridges program, so anything alt will be is 6 through 12.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure we were on. If we have a policy, I want to make sure we're doing it.
Right.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept policy 676?
I make a motion to accept the third reading of policy 676, placement of secondary students at alternative schools.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All right, let's go with Hillary this time. Hillary.
Aye.
Kim, aye.
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And Kirsty, all right. Thank you. All right, and then, I think Superintendent Johnson,
Yeah.
you're
I
up.
think mine will be very easy. I am it's that time of year where we move from kind of collaborating, not kind of, we collaborate well with our association to enter into formal negotiations now that we have pretty good, close to final idea of how much we're receiving from the state. So I'm requesting that we enter into formal negotiations with the Kuna Education Association.
I just did have one question.
Yeah.
Before anybody makes a motion. What's the difference between, I did a little Googling, the interest-based bargaining versus like a traditional negotiation?
I have like a 6-hour, 12-hour course on that, if you'd
We'll
like
get
to know.
started. Let's
Yeah.
Not tonight, Hillary.
We are one of a very small handful of districts that work together through a process where everybody's voice is the same in the room. My vote counts just as much as the teacher, as much as the trustee representative. It is not, I guess the overall focus is it's a win-win instead of I win, you lose. So we try to create a solution that works, that considers all of the interests in the room as equal and valid.
And the other thing I like about it, prior to when I was on negotiations, is they're meeting almost every month.
Yep.
So it's a discussion. It's
Yep.
not something that, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So you're always having interaction and listening to what's going on from both sides.
Can you
And so
explain
that's
what
really
that
good.
means?
With that interest-based.
Just in general, what negotiations are we accepting? What does it
So
mean?
prior to a formal process where we get into the meat and potatoes of pay and benefits, right? We're one of 2 districts that I'm aware of that works all year long, meeting with our association, our Kuna Education, our teacher associations, to solve problems before they become big giant messes. And so, on all of our behalves, you know, administrator, board, community, teachers. So it's really just, we build the agenda together, we talk about it. So that's like what I would call collaboration. And then formal negotiations is in Idaho code. So where the board says, yes, let's do it, and we start the formal negotiations process where we're focused primarily on what is the pay and benefit going to be.
Salaries and benefits. And that's
So
why
it
I
might
vote.
be class size also, you know, but we're dealing with all sorts of things, like balancing class sizes. We're talking about schedules sometimes, we're benefits, yeah, like working through some of the issues that were identified, together, so.
Yeah, and Trustee Thornton is our main
Yep.
guy at this,
Yeah.
so he goes back and forth and lets us know what's going on.
Yep.
So he'll be there.
And so as opposed to like a traditional, like in a traditional type of negotiation, would you present a contract and they choose to sign it or not? Is that kind of what
We
that
would
is?
present offers, and they would present offers, and it would be, how do we not tell the truth about how much money we have, and how do we, on this teacher's side, not tell the truth about what we would consider as our lowest offer. So it's a lot of hiding. I'm very biased because I believe in this process, but it's a lot of hiding and playing a game as opposed to fully transparent working together.
And I would say mistrust
100%.
between the two, and you don't really want that,
Yeah.
so.
We've been, I would say formally negotiating this way for 16 years, and really in the last 10, been really good at it. if
So is
that
there
makes
like a
sense.
teacher from each department?
There's a 2 elementary, 2 secondary.
Oh, so you
Um,
just split it
yeah,
up like
And
that.
so we're constantly training a new group of people. Brian's been serving the last 2 years in that room. And we appreciate you, Mr. Thornton, for joining us in that room, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have a whole presentation I could give you, but I won't do that tonight.
So do I have a motion that we start negotiating the master agreement pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2068?
I move to enter formal negotiations with the Kuna Education Association using interest-based bargaining for the purpose of negotiating a master agreement pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206A.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion?
No.
All right, let's start with you, Hillary.
Aye.
Aye for me.
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you very much.
so go to the order. And ISBA, I guess, do I read these?
Yeah, you can. I'll
Okay.
jump in on number 3 if you don't mind.
No, go
I
ahead.
had Trey highlighted so I wouldn't forget.
Yeah, April 25th is our mayor's awards to youth at Boise City Hall. I had a question about that. Do we have students from
Yep.
CUNA that are in there?
Each of our secondary schools.
Okay. And then number 3?
We are, as you know, preparing information sharing for our staff in our community. And we thought it would be a great idea for us to have an in-person forum for any patron who would like to attend, and have a couple of school board members present information about the levy. We have the presentation already together. It's been approved by council so that we're following the new laws. And then whatever date you pick, those are dates we just threw up there that might be good. But then our team would take the other date and do a virtual meeting. Unless you want to do the virtual one yourself too, we could make that happen.
Yeah,
Like, probably an hour. At the
I'm
most.
good, you know,
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay.
So I just looked at my calendar.
Is there a date that works better?
Is there someone else who'd like to join me? So it's pretty much presenting the levy
Yeah,
to people.
We have a
and-
presentation. that we-
And we're in code of the way we do it, so.
Answer questions, we'd be there to support you too.
Okay.
I wonder if I'd be able to accurately answer a lot of the questions,
Yeah.
but I'm happy to help, but
Is there a date that you prefer?
could be available, I believe, on either one.
And I'm available either one at this
I
time.
think possibly the 9th might be better for me, but
Okay.
it's a little up in the air, but, so if one or the other works better,
No,
otherwise then.
the May 9th would work fine. Where are we planning on having this at?
Wherever would be the best, but probably high school, we usually have used like the Commons if it's available, or a library if it's available. Swan Falls, I think we like to borrow Swan Falls a lot.
Yeah.
Upstairs in that Commons area.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll see what's
So put
available
that
and
down.
let you know.
okay.
And then we'll do an online one on the 16th.
Sure.
So you'd be welcome to join us for that too. We just don't want people to say, we didn't know,
Right.
you know, there wasn't an opportunity to ask questions, so that provides
Well, the
that
buck kind of
opportunity.
stops here, doesn't it? We're the
Yeah.
ones who approved that, so. All right, May 10th, Employee of the Year celebration, which is a fun time. I've been able to be in that and participate. It's wonderful. So if you can go, that's great. It's from 8 to 9:30 in the Kuna Performing Arts Center. And then next on the slide there,
Yeah.
I think there's more on the slides there, is there? ISBA board webinar, I would, those are for you to take a look at. That's it.
I think there's some more.
I think there is. I was just gonna-
Graduation.
Graduation, May 22nd, May 23rd, we have initial point, then Kuna High. May 28th is a meet and greet, Kim Beckadall, our incoming superintendent, which I think is an awesome idea to let our
Yeah,
community.
we organized that, she wasn't aware that her husband wouldn't be available that day.
Oh.
And so we're going to reschedule that for another
Okay,
date,
Okay.
so he can be there to celebrate it.
yeah. Plus, I think it's a great way to let our community meet
Absolutely.
and be
Yeah.
able to be there.
And are we gonna go over what responsibilities we have at graduation? Both of these? I feel
Yes.
like I don't really know.
Did we not
I
tell
can
you,
talk.
did we not tell you you're making a speech?
Happy to, so.
We just pass out diplomas, there's nothing.
At both of these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you wanna make sure that for the Kuna High, that you get a robe and your.
Yeah, I do.
Well, except what at the initial point, the teachers hand them out and we just say congratulations.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and you don't have to wear anything, and that is a fun one, I'll tell you.
You don't have to wear a robe.
Well, excuse me, you have to wear a robe, yes, sorry. You do have to wear something, just not the robe, thank you. Thank you for making that. Thank you. It's a good way to end the meeting, isn't it? A little humor. And then also I wanna talk to the ISBA Leadership Institute, which is gonna be at West Ada. They will be going over, what we as a board can do to help our school district improve scores. So it's gonna be a in-service on that, which I would
Yeah.
hope that one of us could attend or two.
And when you're gonna work on a date? for that?
June 12th.
Oh, June.
It's already June 12th, it's
Okay.
already at West
Oh,
Ada.
got it.
And they're gonna be, there's a book, and they're gonna be going through as what we can do as a school board
Yeah.
to help. So
And
it,
then, were we gonna have to set on another date to meet with Amy White? Or,
yes, but
Work on that
we're
when she's
waiting
available.
for some dates that she has that we can do. And that might change even now, so we'll talk about that.
And we're
That
going
could
into
change.
executive session.
Yes, so do we need to adjourn this meeting and then go into executive session, or do we go into executive
You
session?
need to make a motion to go into executive session.
All right, we can do that.
Reading, the whole thing from the first.
From right here? Got it. All right, do I have a motion that we go into executive session at this time?
I make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Idaho Code Section 74-2061B. The board may elect to hold an executive session to discuss, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student.
All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a second? Sorry.
Second.
And any discussion? Okay, Hillary?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
And Kirsty? All right, thank you.
And so when you go into executive session, you'll come back in here.
And then we
then,
adjourn.
if you have any action
I'm
items, you can act, but
Okay, I am totally learning.
I'll be here.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done.
Enjoy your time.
Thank you.
We adjourned at
9:47.
9:45.
Oh,
That matters.
Yeah, well, executive you do.